the day my grandmother died. I thought I had lost the only person in my family who truly understood me. I was wrong. I had lost her presence, her voice, and the warmth of her hand in mine. But before she left, Grandma had quietly made sure I would never be completely alone. My name is Emily Carter, and I had been a registered nurse for 7 years. Nursing wasn't just a job to me. It was the one thing that made my grandmother proud. She was the person who encouraged me to become a nurse when everyone else told me to choose something easier. "You have a gentle heart, Emily," she used to say, "but never confuse being gentle with being weak." Those words became important later. Much more important than I could have imagined. After Grandma's funeral, I returned to my small apartment and tried to continue living normally. I went to work, came home exhausted, and avoided talking about the empty chair at my kitchen table. 3 weeks later, I received a phone call from Grandma's attorney. "Emily, I need you to come to my office." I assumed it was about paperwork. Instead, he placed a folder in front of me. "Your grandmother left you the majority of her estate." I stared at him. "How much?" He took a breath. "Approximately $3,500,000. I couldn't speak. $3.5 million. Grandma had never been wealthy in the way people imagined. She lived modestly and rarely bought anything for herself. But years earlier, she had made several investments that had grown enormously. And somehow, she had left nearly all of it to me. I started crying, not because of the money, because I knew why she had done it. Grandma knew I wanted to open a small community nursing center someday, a place where elderly people without much money could receive proper care. She had believed in that dream. Now she had given me the means to make it real. That evening, I told my parents. My father, Richard, nearly dropped his glass. $3.5 million. I nodded. My mother, Linda, stared at me for several seconds before forcing a smile. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." I smiled back. For the first time in months, I thought maybe this inheritance would bring our family closer. I couldn't have been more wrong. Over the next few weeks, my parents' questions became increasingly specific. "Where is the money? Has the estate been transferred? Is everything in your name? Have you thought about investing it?" At first, I answered without suspicion. Then Dad suggested something. "You should let us manage some of it." I laughed. "Manage it? We know people who can help." Mom nodded quickly. "We're your parents. We only want what's best for you." I politely refused. That's when their attitude changed. They stopped congratulating me. They started criticizing me. "You don't know how to handle that kind of money. You've always been impulsive. You're too emotional." I couldn't understand why my own parents suddenly seemed determined to make me feel incapable. Then, one Tuesday morning, my hospital supervisor called me into her office. Her face was unusually serious. "Emily, sit down." My stomach tightened. "Is something wrong?" She slid an envelope toward me. "A complaint has been filed against you with the nursing board." I opened it. My hands began shaking. The accusations were horrifying: medication theft, patient negligence, falsifying records, professional misconduct. All of it was completely false. "This isn't true," I whispered. My supervisor nodded. "We know, but the board has to investigate." I walked out of the hospital feeling like the entire world had disappeared beneath my feet. That night, I called my mother. No answer. I called my father. Nothing. Then, just after midnight, my phone finally buzzed. It was a message from Mom. "We need to talk about your inheritance." I stared at those words for a long time. Suddenly, the questions made sense. The pressure made sense and the complaint made sense. My parents weren't trying to protect me. They were trying to make me afraid. They wanted me desperate enough to surrender control of Grandma's $5 million. But they had made one terrible mistake. They had attacked the one thing I had spent 7 years building, my nursing career. And they were about to discover that the daughter they thought they could manipulate wasn't as helpless as they believed. The next morning, I sat in my car outside the hospital for almost 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel. For 7 years, I had worked to become a nurse. 7 years of long shifts, sleepless nights, difficult patients, and endless studying. Now, one anonymous complaint threatened to destroy everything, but something kept bothering me. How did the person who filed the complaint know so much about my work? The accusations mentioned details that weren't publicly available. Someone knew my schedule. Someone knew which medications I had access to. Someone knew exactly when I had worked certain shifts. I needed answers. So instead of confronting my parents, I called an attorney. His name was Daniel Brooks. I explained everything. He listened quietly before asking, "Who benefits if you lose your nursing license?" I swallowed. My parents, Daniel leaned forward. "Then don't confront them yet. Let them believe you don't know." That advice changed everything. That afternoon, my mother called. "Emily, honey, we heard about the complaint." My heart started racing. "How did you hear about it?" There was silence, then she said, "People talk." I knew she was lying. "Mom, I'm handling it. You should listen to your father and me." "Why? Because you're emotional right now." I almost laughed. The same word again, emotional. It was beginning to sound less like concern and more like a weapon. That evening, Dad called. "You need to protect your inheritance." I asked, "How?" "You should temporarily put the money into a family trust." I already knew where this conversation was going. Who would control the trust? He hesitated. Your mother and I could manage it. I closed my eyes. There it was. The solution they had been waiting for. Create a crisis, make me afraid, then offer themselves as the only people capable of saving me. "No," I said. Dad's voice hardened. "Emily, you don't understand how serious this is." "I understand perfectly. You could lose your career. Then I'll fight for it." He became silent. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You'll regret refusing our help." The call ended. 2 days later, Daniel obtained the official complaint file. We discovered something shocking. The complaint claimed that I had stolen controlled medication on a Tuesday evening. But that Tuesday, I hadn't even been inside the hospital. I had attended a meeting for Grandma's charitable foundation. There were 17 people there. There were sign-in records, security footage, and photographs from the event. Most importantly, my hospital access badge had never been used that night. The accusation was impossible. Someone had lied. Daniel smiled slightly. "This is good." "How is this good?" "Because whoever did this made a mistake." We continued investigating. Then we found another mistake. The complaint used phrases almost identical to words my mother had written in an old email to me. She had once told me that I was too emotional to make financial decisions and reckless with responsibility. Those same phrases appeared in the complaint. My stomach turned. Daniel looked at me. "Are you ready to hear something difficult?" I nodded. This wasn't random. That night, I received another message from my mother. "Please come home. We need to discuss your future." I didn't respond. Instead, I waited. The next afternoon, my parents appeared at my apartment. My mother walked in first. My father followed carrying a folder. "We're here because we love you," Mom said. I looked at the folder. "What is that?" Dad placed it on the table in agreement. I opened it. It was a legal document giving them control over my inheritance. I looked up slowly. "You want my money." Mom immediately shook her head. "We want to protect you by taking control of it. You aren't thinking clearly." I stared at her. Then I played the voicemail I had secretly saved. It was my mother's voice. "If she loses her license, she'll panic. Then she'll sign the trust papers. We just need to make her understand she has no choice." The room became completely silent. My father looked at my mother. My mother looked at me. Nobody spoke. Finally, I stood, "Get out." Mom started crying. "But we're your parents." My voice broke. "And I'm your daughter." I wiped my tears. "I trusted you." They left without another word. I closed the door behind them and leaned against it. For the first time, I wasn't confused anymore. I knew exactly who had betrayed me, and now I knew exactly what I had to do. After my parents left that night, I barely slept. Their voices kept replaying in my head. If she loses her license, she'll panic. Then she'll sign the trust papers. I had heard my mother's words with my own ears. There was no misunderstanding anymore. My parents had deliberately tried to destroy my career so they could control the $3. 5 million Grandma had left me. The next morning, I called Daniel. I want to fight this, I told him. He answered calmly. Then we're going to fight it with evidence, not anger. For the next several days, we collected everything: hospital access records, security footage, my work schedule, witness statements, messages from my parents, financial documents. Every piece of evidence showed the same thing. The accusations against me were fabricated. But then Daniel called and asked me to come to his office immediately. When I arrived, he was holding a sealed envelope. Emily, this was found among your grandmother's estate documents. I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was Grandma's. My hands began to shake. Why didn't I know about this? Your grandmother instructed her attorney to give it to you only if circumstances required it. I opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a letter. Dear Emily, I stopped breathing for a moment, then I continued reading. If you're reading this, something has probably happened that made you question the people around you. My eyes filled with tears. Grandma continued, I wish I could protect you from every disappointment in life, but I know I can't. So I protected something else, your future. I wiped my eyes. Never measure someone's loyalty by what they say when you're watching. Measure it by what they do when they think you cannot see them. I couldn't stop crying. Then came the part that changed everything. Grandma had created an independent trust for the inheritance. My parents had absolutely no authority over it. They couldn't control the money. They couldn't force me to surrender it. They couldn't use my financial situation to manipulate me. Grandma had protected me before I even knew I needed protection, but there was more. Her attorney showed me recorded conversations from months before her death. In one recording, Grandma was speaking with her financial advisor. I love my daughter, she said, but she's too kind. I'm afraid someone will use that kindness against her. The advisor asked even her family. Grandma became quiet. Then she answered, especially people who believe being family gives them ownership of her life. I covered my mouth. Grandma had known. Maybe she didn't know exactly what my parents would do, but she had understood their nature. 2 days later, the nursing board hearing began. My parents were sitting in the back of the room. My mother looked nervous. My father looked confident. They probably believed I would walk out of that room without my license. Instead, Daniel presented the evidence. First came the hospital records, then the security footage, then the witnesses who confirmed I was nowhere near the hospital when the alleged medication theft supposedly occurred. Finally, Daniel played the voicemail. My mother's voice filled the room. If she loses her license, she'll panic. Then she'll sign the trust papers. My mother lowered her head. My father stared at the floor. One of the board members asked them directly, "Can you explain this?" My father stood. We were concerned about our daughter. The board member frowned. Concern does not explain a false complaint. He sat down. Daniel then presented the financial documents showing that my parents had repeatedly pressured me to transfer control of the inheritance shortly before the complaint was filed. The room became completely silent. The board took a recess. When they returned, the decision was clear. There was no evidence of medication theft, no evidence of patient negligence, no falsified records, no professional misconduct. The complaint against me was dismissed. My nursing license was safe. My career was safe. And the $3, 5 million Grandma left me was still mine. Outside the hearing room, my mother approached me. "Emily, please." I turned toward her. She was crying. "We made mistakes." I shook my head. "No, Mom." She looked at me. "You made a choice." Her face fell. I took a breath. "I forgive you." She looked surprised. "But forgiveness doesn't mean I'll ever give you control of my life again." Then I walked away. For the first time since Grandma died, I felt completely free. But I still had one decision left to make. What would I do with the fortune my parents had nearly destroyed my family to obtain? The answer would become the sweetest revenge of all. 3 months after the nursing board cleared my name, my life finally began to feel normal again. I went back to work. I slept peacefully. I stopped checking my phone every few minutes. afraid another accusation would appear. But one thing had changed forever. I no longer confused being someone's daughter with being responsible for their choices. My parents had wanted control of Grandma's $5 million, so I decided to use it for something they could never take from me. I bought an old building on the east side of town. It had once been a small medical office, but it had been abandoned for years. I spent months renovating it, then I put a sign above the entrance, Margaret Carter Community Nursing Center. The first time I saw Grandma's name on that building, I cried. This wasn't just an investment. It was the dream we had talked about so many times. A place where elderly people could receive medical care, even if they couldn't afford expensive treatment. A place where young nurses could receive scholarships. A place where people could feel cared for instead of forgotten. Within months, the center was helping hundreds of people, and something unexpected happened. The story about my nursing board investigation spread through the community. People learned that my parents had tried to use a false complaint to pressure me into surrendering control of my inheritance. Some people encouraged me to expose them. Others told me to sue them publicly, but I refused. I didn't want revenge that destroyed lives. I wanted a life so beautiful that their betrayal became irrelevant. Then, one afternoon, I received a letter from my parents. They wanted to meet. I almost threw it away, but something inside me told me to go. We met at a quiet restaurant. My mother looked tired, my father looked older. For several minutes nobody spoke. Finally, Dad broke the silence. We're struggling. I looked at him. Our financial situation has become very bad. I didn't respond. Mom reached across the table. We know we don't deserve your help. Those words surprised me. Dad looked at me. We lost our house. I took a slow breath. Why are you telling me? Because you're our daughter. The words were familiar. But they no longer had power over me. I could have reminded them of the nursing board complaint. I could have shown them the voicemail. I could have told everyone exactly what they had done. Instead, I said something neither of them expected. I can help you. They looked at each other, but not with Grandma's inheritance. Dad's expression changed. I can help you find affordable housing. I can help you make a financial plan. I can help you get back on your feet. Mom started crying. But I will never give you control over my money. Dad looked down. After a long silence, he nodded. I understand. For the first time, I believed him. When I returned home that evening, I looked at Grandma's photograph. You were right. I whispered. She had always told me that kindness didn't mean allowing people to hurt me. A year later, the nursing center held its first annual scholarship ceremony. 20 young nursing students received financial assistance. Several elderly patients received free medical treatment. I stood at the front of the room and looked around. Then I noticed my parents standing quietly near the back. They hadn't asked for anything. They were simply watching. I walked toward them. My mother hugged me. I hugged her back. But this time there were boundaries between us. Healthy ones, the kind that should have existed from the beginning. Later that evening, I returned to Grandma's memorial plaque. I ran my fingers across her name. I finally understood what she had left me. It wasn't $5 million. Not really. The money was only the tool. Her true inheritance was the courage to stand on my own feet. My parents had tried to take my future from me. Instead, they had pushed me toward it. They wanted my inheritance. They wanted control. They wanted me afraid, but they failed. I kept my nursing license. I protected Grandma's money. I built the nursing center we had dreamed about, and I forgave them without surrendering myself. That was my revenge. Not destroying them, not humiliating them, not making them suffer. Simply becoming everything they once tried to convince me I could never be. As I looked at Grandma's photograph that night, I smiled through my tears. Thank you, I whispered. And for the first time, I knew exactly what she meant when she told me. Never let anyone make you ashamed of your kindness. Just make sure your kindness has boundaries.